Hey guys. Oh my goodness. So I believe I'm coming down with a cold. Happy November. If it's November when you're listening to this, but it's November when I recorded this. So I am fully congested. I cannot wait to, be able to breathe through my nose. I'm having sinus issues, and this is the first time I've been this sick in a while. Usually, because I work in the hospitals, I take the flu shot. And so I haven't had a flu in years, but the last time I had one, I was like, is this a 1882 flu? Is this like a 1765 flu? Like, I felt like it was going to really take me all the freaking way out. But I'm really glad that obviously it didn't. But so yeah, I'm a little under the weather right now, but that don't stop the show. Mama's bills still got to be paid. So if you have not registered for our first free webinar, I told you guys that I'm moving to a process where I'm doing more online coaching, more teaching and stuff. And so it's kind of like an informational session workshop where it's very intimate, where you get to work with me one-on-one, and I want to have a lot of time, or at least some time in there, just to kind of speak to you guys to see where you need specific motivation, information, connections, the gaps in between your idea and creation. And so I'm holding this first informational session. I don't even know what date I picked. I believe it's November 14th. But if I was you, I wouldn't wait to get in, because I already have more than 50% of the registration done, and I'm only taking a certain amount of people because I want to be able to have time to speak to everybody, and really speak to people. I'm going to probably try to do it via Zoom. You don't have to be on camera if you don't want to, but you could actually speak to me and communicate with me, because I really want to be able to provide, more resources to people of color who are looking to make 2020 and their vision for 2030 and beyond execute it perfectly. I feel like I'm in a great place in my business. I do a lot being I'll say I'm a small business owner, a solopreneur, pretty much. I do have help. This year I don't have interns, which is a gift and a curse. And so, hiring staff and speaking to support people so that I can get some of the support that I need to do. But looking over the goals that I have for the next 3 years of my business, I really feel like I'm going to be able to hit those metrics and do it all and keep my sanity. And so I want to be able to at least have a cohort of people that we're kind of working on the same things together and kind of problem solving together. And if you would like to get into that, I suggest you join our mailing list. And even if you join the mailing list, shoot me an email and say, hey, I want to, join the program. Because it's going to close really soon. I only have a certain amount of seats because it's not going to be very long, just because of restrictions and, the way the technology works right now. And so, yeah, there's that. If you have not joined, join. If you want to join, hit me up, DM me, shoot me a message. Shout out to the people that have already been doing that. Shout out to the people who've already signed up. Shout out to the people that are actually going to make it. If I were you, I would mark it on your calendar and go live, because there probably won't be a replay. I don't think I'm going to send out a replay for it. And I don't know if I'm going to do a free one again after this. So the goal is to do it for free. I used to teach previously. I haven't taught in a long time. So I was like, let me just see if I could have these chats and see what people want to learn and see how I can help them get started in their businesses. Because I do so many different things and I have my hand in so many different pots. I just wanted to make sure that I would give people what they wanted. So it was basically like an informational session where I will be giving you guys concrete solutions where you will walk away from it either able to implement in the business that you already have, or directives to start the business that you want to start. Okay. And this is ideal obviously for therapists or coaches, because that's what I do. I know that back and forth. And so if you haven't signed up, go ahead and do that now.
So I don't think I put a what would you do last week, but I had one prepared. So I'm going to give you guys one for this week. So if you listen to this podcast, wherever you listen to this podcast, I read the comments. The horror. And I answer everything by myself. So, thank you guys for everybody who's given me wonderful rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you listen, Google Play, iHeartRadio. Please leave me reviews and comments because I read them. Now, one of them from not that long ago, the gentleman said, "Hey sis, I love your show, but my brothers need love too." And you guys do, right? So the reason that I haven't done that is because I don't know a lot of Black male clinicians to come on the show. And if you are a Black male clinician and you are listening to the sound of my voice, please apply to be on the show. Send me a DM, shoot me a message, reply on my post when I'm asking for therapists. I'm looking for you guys, and your community is looking for you. I don't cover a lot of male topics. I wish that I would. The reason that I don't is because I feel like woman-splaining men's issues to men is really not what I really want to do. I really want, there to be a space for men to have their own say. And so I would love to have a male clinician come on and talk about whatever they want to talk about on the show. And I want you guys, if you are males, to come on and let me know what you want us to cover on the show that we haven't already done. Okay? All right. So that is the what would you do? What would you have me cover? Or what would you have me do to be a better advocate for men on the podcast platform? Because it is for all of us. It is not for women. But of course, I'm a woman, so I talk about my issue. And yeah. All right. Okay.
Today we have an interview with Dr. Holly Sawyer. Holly Sawyer is a PhD, and she is a therapist at Life First Therapy in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. But we're going to get into that interview right now. Introduce yourself to the people.
Hello, I am Dr. Holly Sawyer, clinical licensed professional counselor and certified addictions counselor in the city of Philadelphia.
Wow. Is that where you're from originally?
No, I'm not. I'm originally from Chicago. I moved to Philly about almost 6 years ago. So, this is like a home away from home.
What's so ironic about that is that those are two cities I would relocate to.
Oh.
Like, Philly is on my really, really short list, and I'm kind of looking at Philly out the side of my eye for a number of reasons. But I went to I visited Chicago now only twice in my illustrious life. But the first time I went, I felt so at home. It was definitely not what you see on the news.
Yep.
And actually what happened was I have a friend that lives in Chicago. I went to go visit him. He had been harassing me to come see him forever. And he's like the mayor of of Chicago. I feel like everybody I know in Chicago is like super poppin' though, and like very connected. I mean, I have like friends who are comedians who are like from Chicago, and then this guy, he's a sports agent, and then my friend, she works like in government out there. So like I feel like everybody that I know personally, and I like never having gone to Chicago before, but just knowing people who are from there were like super connected. And so I was like, if I'm gonna go to Chicago, I'm gonna go with somebody who's connected, not knowing that just like everybody I know is kind of on that level. I'm just like reflecting on that now. And we went to Silverline's block party.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, oh my God, everybody at this block party looked like they read a book. Like it wasn't what I expected. Like not even like a little book, but like a real big book. Like,
Well,
like, that's my metric for like how educated Black people are. But it was like, I remember asking my friend, I was like, well, how do you keep like the hood out of here? Because there's no way we could have a block party anywhere in New York, or even I would even dare to say in Philly, that the hood knows about and they not coming to. And he was like, they're not going to come over here. And I was like, what? He was like, nah, they're not coming over here. And like he lives by like Obama's house, and I saw like Farrakhan's house. I was like, this is popping. Like, I could do this.
Well, you know, Chicago is the second city to New York. So I've never met a New Yorker ever.
It is called second city.
Yeah. So I've never met a New Yorker and they go to Chicago and they don't fall in love with it. I promise you. I mean, I've gone to school with so many people from Brooklyn, from Harlem, from Queens, and I take them home or they've gone and they're like, oh my gosh, I felt like I didn't leave New York. I'm like, yeah, we are called second city for a reason.
I won't go that far. I won't go that far. Definitely had contrasts, but I think in terms of like a metropolitan city that like has, you know, a thriving Black culture, you know, it kind of felt like, what, maybe it's because the area was that Hyde Park? Is that what it's called?
Yep.
I bought a T-shirt that said I heard Hyde Park, so I kind of remember the name. But it feels very. It feels homely, but it also feels kind of like, you know, Buppy-ish.
Okay.
Like educated, Black. Like the conversations that I was having, it was like, I'm not, like, what is this? So culturally, it just felt so rich and enriching. I was like, at this point in my life, I could definitely, like, do this.
Aww.
Yeah. It sucks that that's not the narrative that people have of like of Chicago. And then my last day there, I didn't have a great time, so I knew somebody who lived in Chicago and put a SOS out, like, SOS, I'm in Chicago, I'm having a bad time now. I want to go home. And my friend was like, you know, from Chicago, and I met her once, and she was like, send me your address, I'm coming to get you. And when I tell you, she came to got me, and we had a blast. Like, we had a blast. And I met her one time in New York for, like, a business thing. And so she's like, are you in Chicago? She's like, I'm coming to get you right now. Just send me the address. And she did. So just kind of, like, that feeling of, like, love and, like, taking care of me. I love when I go to places I'm being taken care of. It felt super great.
Yes.
Anyway, shout out to Chicago.
Good.
That's not why we came to talk today. Okay, so you and I met on Instagram.
Yes.
Because you bought one of our Black Therapist Podcast T-shirts.
Yes.
Hey.
And I wore it during a Black mental health documentary that should be released. I put a couple of snippets on my Instagram page, but I'm actually wearing your shirt while I'm being part of this mental health roundtable with like 3 other therapists.
Oh my God, I saw that.
Yep, that's your shirt.
You know what? I saw it. I think I liked it, and I just went on with my day because, you know, I really couldn't see just the way it was shot. I couldn't see what you had on.
Oh,
but
okay.
Yeah, so that's how we met, and then you hit me up and you said, I'm coming to New York for my book tour, and I was like, I'm gonna show up.
And you did.
And you were super surprised.
I was. No, because you meet people on Instagram and, you know, people are like, oh, you know, they're going to come or they support you or whatever the case may be. But then for somebody to actually physically show up, show their support, be there, live in the living color, give you all the love, I was just like so taken back. I was in tears when I left. I really was. So
the room felt good, though.
No, it did. It really did. It really did.
It felt good.
It really did.
So let's start there. What made you become a therapist?
Oh, wow. A couple of things, but mainly I went through depression prior to having my children and definitely post. And I sought therapy pre-getting married and having children, and I had a white therapist, and we just didn't click. We clashed. And for the life of me, I'm like, why can't I find a Black therapist? Not that they didn't exist, but I just felt like they were not at my disposal when I lived in D.C. at the time. And I was like, this is crazy. So then once I got married and I had my son, I had some postpartum depression, and then he got diagnosed with autism at the age of 4, and I was trying to navigate that world. I went to therapy again. I had another white therapist, and I'm like, okay, this is killing me. So I could imagine what other moms who have children with special needs that are Black, if they're going to therapy, what does this look like? Are they even being helped or understood culturally? And I was like, I got to change the narrative with this. And that was upon many reasons, but that was my main reason. I wanted to represent as much as I could culturally the need to see a Black female therapist.
I kind of feel like that's the narrative too. I mean, I'm adding to that, but that, you know, a lot of therapists have their own mental struggles, and so that's why we come to this work. I mean, I don't know if that's true per se, but I think a lot. Well, you know what? I mean, a lot of overweight people become fitness experts, so I guess it kind of is, you know, it's kind of in human nature to want to help other people with the thing that helped you. But how did you find that going to the white counselors at the time that you needed them? Like, how did you find it was helpful for the work that you needed to do on yourself?
It was helpful because I realized that therapy was something that is therapeutic and that it could work, but I just needed the right therapist. I realized that I was in the right space, in the right room. I just wasn't with the right therapist. And I said, in order for this to work and to change, I need to find somebody that is a cultural fit for me and competent. I think that it needed to be a mix of both. You can be competent, you can go to school, you get your degree, get your hours, but where's the cultural competence? And I felt that that was a big component that was missing. And so I said, you know what, when I become a therapist, I won't come in with the idea that just because you, meaning the client is Black and female, that we're just going to automatically jail, because even being Black, we have our subcultures within our culture. So
agreed.
And so I had to also realize that as well, but I could at least identify with some level of oppression. I could at least identify with some level of trauma. I could at least identify, again, being Black and female, and what that looks like for you. So yeah, that was a space, I guess, that I operated from as well.
Yeah. Now you're a doctor. Could you tell them your credentials?
Oh, yeah. So I have a doctorate in higher education. I've been in higher education for about 16 years, working mainly with, of course, adults who also have a lot or a variety of mental illnesses. And so in the classroom, they would come to me with their issues and their problems, but as a professor, you couldn't really cross that line. It was like, hey, I'm just here to impart knowledge. If you have mental health issues, you just had to send them on wherever they needed to go. And I got tired of that as well, because for me, I've always wanted to work with the whole person. I'm not a person that has to separate or compartmentalize the individual. You're a holistic person. So when you come in and you're trying to learn something and you're thinking about your mental health or how you're going to feed your kids or whatever else is going on, and then you come to the professor to explain to them, and I'm looking at you like my hands are tied. I got tired of that. It felt very inhumane. So that's on the back end, as until also why I went back to earn my license. So doctorate in higher ed, which I still teach and create courses for. I have my license in professional counseling with the state of Pennsylvania, and I'm also certified in addictions counseling, because a lot of our people, brown and black people, use substances to cope. Whether they are high function, low function, using substances for some people is just an easier route versus facing the issue in itself. So I have about 6 years working in addictions, managing different drug and alcohol treatment facilities, and working with clients who are dual diagnosed between mental health and substance abuse.
Okay. Tell them what dual diagnosis means, because I don't think people outside of us would know what you're talking about.
Sure. Okay. So a dual diagnosed person basically is someone who is suffering from substance abuse in addition to having a mental illness. So, for example, it could be someone who may be addicted to crack cocaine who also suffers from schizophrenia.
And I often tell my clients, like,
I mean, well, maybe you can tell me, but I feel like me as a clinician, if a client comes to me and they tell me what substance they're using, I can usually tell what they're trying to treat. Would you find that would be accurate? Because like a lot of people will treat, you know, a lot of cocaine use or drug use period, it indicates some trauma. We know that. If you're using cocaine, usually sometimes it's to counteract the symptoms of depression. A lot of people use, you know, marijuana to relax. So, I mean, I usually ask people what substances they're using in order to kind of get a gauge on like what they're trying to treat. Because sometimes when we're trying to do symptomology, we don't know exactly like what the situation is or like what symptoms they have. People come in and they know that they have problems, but they don't properly know how to articulate it. So for me, I use the substances they're using as kind of like a guideline, or I look at what we do as like Law and Order. We're basically just trying to like solve the mystery of like what the underlying issues are. And so for me, sometimes figuring out what substances they're using feeds into that.
No, I agree. That's definitely an approach. I have a client who uses marijuana because they refuse to use their Wellbutrin. And it's like, no, you should probably use your Wellbutrin if you were prescribed that instead of using the marijuana, because you suffer from depression and the marijuana is not going to help your depression. Exactly. Yep. Exactly. And it's like, whoa, no, that's not the case. I'm like, well, do you find that you're out of your head after you smoke the marijuana? Because
you sitting in your thoughts and ruminating and paranoid.
Yes, exactly. So
you have intrusive thoughts, and now you have more intrusive thoughts and more intrusive thoughts.
Exactly.
No, that's not a good. That's not a good look.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's not. It's not. So use the Wellbutrin as it was prescribed. And for those who don't know what that is, that's, a medication that can be used. Yeah, but antidepressant, a medication that can be used to treat depression. But a lot of times people are like, no, I just rather go smoke my weed, vape, and I'll be fine. And I'm like, not with the depression, honey. But yeah,
it's just escapism for a lot of people.
Yes, it is.
And the convenience of access.
Yep. You're right.
Yeah.
You're so right. Yeah. So I work again with just professional women who I try to help them build intrapersonal skills to cope with different instances versus going over, like I said, to smoking the marijuana or whatever their substance or drug of choice is as a coping skill versus really leaning upon themselves and building that resiliency. Yeah, and I know it can be hard, and you're right. It's just so easy to just go light up. It's easy.
Yeah, I'm not mad at it. It's just not helpful. It reminds me of my aunt. My aunt had substance uses, and one day we were talking about drinking, and I was like, I don't mind drinking. I absolutely don't like getting drunk. As I was like, it's literally like giving yourself a stomach ache. Like, why would I want to? A stomach bug. Why would I want to do that to myself? Like purposefully. Like I'm at an age now that I know what my limit is. But like to purposefully get like smashed, why would I ever want to do that? And my aunt was like, yeah, like you would be drinking to get rid of your problems, and now you woke up with your problems and a hangover. And I was like, exactly. She's like, it's not escapism. It's just putting it off.
Yep. That's it.
Nothing is, you're not escaping from anything. And I was like, that's a good, I mean, I guess that's a good way to look at it. But, she's had her bouts. So, she would have a different perspective on it than I. Can we talk about what it's like to be the mom of a special needs child?
Sure.
Because my nephew was diagnosed. I have two family members who were diagnosed with autism. And I also have a background in education. So when the oldest family member's child was diagnosed, I was the lone person. First of all, I'm like the outcast in my family, period. I'm not even that. If I was a black sheep, that'd be fine, but I'm like a purple sheep, hot pink sheep. So, so for me, I was like, is nobody else going to talk about the fact that this baby doesn't speak? And so I kind of just waited one-on-one, and I had a conversation with his mom, and I was like,
right.
I really think you should take him to a pediatrician because he's not verbal. And I got the cussing out of my life. There's nothing wrong with him. He don't got nothing to say. He speaks to me sometimes. He just don't know you. He not talking to you. And I was like, okay, that's fine. But I'm just telling you out of love, like, I really think you need to take him to a pediatrician. Like, that wasn't me telling you anything wrong. My nephew was diagnosed, and with him, it's still a constant battle. My mother's raising my nephew.
Okay.
It's a constant battle to get my family to recognize that he needs special attention. Like, my mother is one of those old school mothers. It's like, you don't go get welfare. You don't go get public assistance. So I feel like the services that he's entitled to because of his diagnosis, he's not getting. And even though I've tried to guide them through the IEP process and, get my brother to be more supportive of his son and like be more active in certain things that are going on with their life, I've kind of threw my hands up with it, just me personally.
Right.
Because fighting old black people is a hard job.
Hello. That's a battle in itself, girl.
So it's just kind of difficult to put yourself in that situation. And so, I mean, I know that a lot of parents who have newly diagnosed children, they end up going through denial, which is fine. I think we all kind of have that stage of grief, because when your kid is sick in any respect, but they have something that is going to present a specific challenge to the dream and the narrative we as parents have when we have these children.
Right. That's true.
There's a mourning process that we have to go through with the diagnosis, and I feel like it's similar to the process of, like, the stages of grief, where you're in denial, and then you're angry, and then you finally reach acceptance. So, like, what was that like for you?
So what you're describing is, I mean, dead on. Like, for you to only be the aunt, like, that is crazy how you're describing it, because it literally was like that. It was literally like a grieving process, because you have a child, and the thing that people would say, as long as they have 10 fingers, 10 toes, they can see, they're healthy. But, okay, my son had all of that, but he was autistic. So on the surface, you have all those things, but you can't see it, at least for my son, because he's high functioning. But then I started to notice things, and I was like, wait a minute, something is not right with my child. And then you got people in your ear who are talking about it's the vaccinations and all these different theories as to why or how autism came to be. And so then once the diagnosis was official, I literally had to grieve the process of, one, okay, my child how can I say this? He's not your typical normal, or the normal that doesn't come with autism. He's normal, but it's just normal on an autistic level. And that takes years to accept, because you have to let go of, like you said, that narrative of having this quote-unquote normal child, and then adjusting your whole life, because it comes with you relearning to adjust to what now this person needs in order for them to thrive as a child with autism. And that process was very depressing. It was sometimes isolating, because some people just don't get it and just don't understand. Some people want to, describe or treat your child as if they have ADHD, when it's like, no, my son is autistic. I had to do a lot of fighting for specialists in his school because at the time, my son is now 12, about to be 13. So about 8, 9 years ago, there were not a lot of ABA, which is Applied Behavioral Analysis type therapists or counselors that will work with my son. I had to fight the state, the school, because he went to a charter school, in order for them to get this ABA person to work with him one-on-one. I could not hold down a job because my son had behavioral issues. It was rough. And that whole thing is about accepting where you are. You could be very angry, which is one of the stages of grief, before you even begin to accept it. You're like effing angry because now your whole life has just totally changed versus if he was a quote-unquote normal 4-year-old that can just go to school, assimilate and be in a homogeneous classroom and just be quote-unquote normal. No, your whole life now has to adjust and change. So I think when you start to work through that process, accept it, and really kind of roll up your sleeves and get in it to say, okay, what does my child need to thrive on the spectrum? Then things, I won't say that they let up, but they do become a little bit easier as you start to really become your child's advocate. Because I knew what resources he needed, but it was up to me at the end of the day to go and get those things and make it happen. And for my own sanity, I had to go to therapy because it was just rough. That transition was rough.
Hell yeah. And that's the part that I think is missing with both of my family members. With my cousin, I feel like her sister and her daughter has stepped up as much as they can to help lighten the load for him. And he used to be nonverbal, but now he does speak. He don't speak when he don't feel like it, but when he has something to say, he talks. And it's not a matter of, I think a lot of people think that they're just like mutes, like not everybody speaks, but like if he doesn't have anything to talk about, he ain't talking to you. But when he has something to say, like it's profound. Mm-hmm. And so she has some assistance. My mother rarely has any. And my mother has been raising children since she's been 15 years old. My mother was a teenage mom with my sister was born. And so to be raising children all these years, she's kind of tired, number one. She has old school parenting thinking, number two, which is not what you have to be a proactive parent if you have a child with special needs. And so
yes, you
not
do.
To say that she's not a good caregiver, I just don't feel like the extra support she needs, she has the extra support that my nephew needs, or they both need. Does she have the energy nor the current skill set to be able to do what she needs to do with him? And so I try to empower his father to be more and more active, but you kind of don't know what you don't know, and you don't fix what you don't acknowledge. And so for me, it's a very painful situation to watch him struggle. He's completely verbal. He's more Asperger's Asperger's than anything.
Okay.
So he's very verbal, and he's gorgeous. So I'm like, when he gets older, these girls are gonna be on him, and y'all haven't done the work necessary for him. Like, he could really be thriving. And my fear for him is that he won't thrive. I'm getting emotional. But my fear for him is that he won't thrive just because people won't get out of their own way to get him the assistance that they need to get him the assistance that he needs.
And you're correct. And they are so unique. And it does seem like a lot going through, but I love having I love that my son is on a spectrum because it makes me step up in a whole nother way, in a different type of capacity than just like, and there's nothing against parents who don't have a child on the spectrum, but it just challenges me as a parent in a whole nother direction, that I'm thankful for, because it has taught and brought a lot out of me as well. And I love his normal, because again, I'm meeting him in his space and where he is. So it's a beautiful thing, and I hope that your nephew can get the things that he needs.
Yeah, because you got to be a warrior. I used to teach inclusion class, and there were parents that I used to be like, yo, come up to the school, kid. Like, I work for the school. I can't tell you that your kid isn't being pulled out for services, but maybe you want to ask if your kid is being pulled out for services. Maybe you want to come up here. Maybe you want to review his IEP now. Maybe you want to be more interactive with their para. Like, what are you doing? So you have to be a warrior parent in this. I think this is where parenting goes hard in the paint.
Yeah, you do. It really, really, and that's the thing. It shows you your resiliency, your toughness, and just where you are and how you show up. And I think, again, for me, it just allowed me to be like, oh, if I can go hard and advocate for the paint for my son, what? It shows him how to also advocate for himself, because at some point he's going to be an adult as well. We know that he's going to age out of services at some point. So how does he show up? So he's seeing me grinding and doing all these things to speak up for him. And I still go to the IEP meetings to this day. He'll even come. He'll have his feet in, his say so. Like, I include him. I don't, try to hide from him what it is that he has, because he knows that he's quote unquote different from other kids. But we have these conversations because this is who he is. So I embrace it. He embraces it. And it's so many different growth spurts and things that it goes in and out as far as on the spectrum, and things that he latches on to and doesn't no more have interest in. But I don't think that's any different from other kids. Again, it just comes with a different set of challenges. So I encourage any parent who has a child on the spectrum, Asperger's, just get, like you said, go hard in the paint for your kid, because they are so unique. I love them. I feel like God gave me my own unicorn. I'll be honest.
Yeah. And my nephew, he's probably around the same, I think he's around the same age, but I mean, recently someone told him he had Asperger's. I mean, not Asperger's, that he was autistic. So it became a thing in the family. We're like, oh, don't use the A word. And I was like, why?
No.
So he was at my son's graduation. So he and I was driving in the car. And so I asked him, I said, can I ask you a question? And he said, what? I said, did somebody say that you were autistic? And he was like, yes. And I said, how did that make you feel? And he said, I didn't like it. I said, why? He said, because I didn't like it. I said, do you know what that means? He said, no. I said, you don't know what it means? He said, no. I said, what did you think they were calling you? And he said, I think they were saying that I was dumb. And I said, well, they were telling you that you were special and that you're different.
Yes.
And I said, we're all different. I said, so I don't ever want you to feel bad because somebody called you something. I said, people call me things all the time.
Okay, and they not so nice with those B words, okay?
You know what I'm saying? They call me things all the time, and some of it's true. So clearly he laughed too. But I was like, don't ever feel bad because somebody calls you something. I was like, everybody has their thing that makes them different. I was like, you're just different. I was like, all autism is different. And he said, okay. Because I don't want us to be pussyfooting around it, and I don't want him to feel like we can't say the word.
Yeah,
it's not shameful. Like,
no,
it's a condition. Like, knock it off. So I just kind of had to separate him from my mother and have that discussion with him. So I told her, I was like, yeah, me and him talked about it.
Good.
And he's okay.
Good.
And then when we were on our way back, he was telling me something he was doing online. Like, he has a whole online life. I was like, what?
Yes, they are good with computers, technology, science, math, artistic.
No, my nephew, my cousin's son is amazing with computers.
Yes.
But my nephew was just he was explaining something. He has a YouTube channel, and it was like James Bond something. I was like, what?
Wow.
What is this? Did you do? So I had to tell his father because I'm like, yo,
Yes.
you got a teenage son now, son. You got to like check on him.
Yes.
Check in on him. Like,
Yes.
and he was like, I heard him say that. Like, I heard mommy told me, but I didn't believe it. I was like, he told me all of like the intricacies of what he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, if anybody thinks this boy is dumb, y'all sleeping on him.
Yeah, and that's the point. Like my son, he makes beats. He has his own SoundCloud account. I buy him all types of instruments and beat machines, and he makes music. That is his twist right now. And so I just invest in that because I don't know where it's going to go. Now, a year from now, he may say it's something else, but it don't matter. I'm investing in it, just trying to feed that seed. So, yes, you are correct. They better get with it. He could be making $1 million.
Yeah. And what I love about that situation, too, is you know, they're going to have their own lives. So when I see like Kyle Hughley on the Hughley show or, hold on one second, my alarm is going off. As I was saying, before I was rudely interrupted. So yeah, when I see like Kyle Hughley on the Hughley show, or oh my God, when Holly Robinson Pete used to have a show and she did an episode of her son getting his driver's license, that stressed me the hell out. I was like, Nikita, that ain't your baby, but she was like, you know, all these cops killing black boys driving. And I was like, no, get him a driver. You have money. Like, it's just like, you know, just seeing them, you know, live their normal lives. Denim, Tony Braxton's son. So just kind of seeing them be represented as like brown boys, brown bodies with this challenge, being able to see them on TV was like amazing.
Yes.
It really was.
Yes. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree because we need more exposure to that. I have a friend down in Florida. She has a daughter who's autistic, and it's even rare for black girls to be diagnosed in black boys. And so I'll like call her and like talk to her about it. Like, how is it different? How do you feel it's different? Now, of course, she has a son, but he's autistic. But I always just kind of like talk to her about it because it's even rare with little black girls. So I'm always interested to see like how they vary and what is it like. And it may not be a difference across genders, but I just always find it interesting.
My girlfriend has a child who was recently diagnosed, and I think it is different.
Okay.
I think that black boys are characterized, especially with the outbursts. Like, when my nephew used to have like his outbursts and like he would go get violent, like he was like he was an Incredible Hulk. I could not hold him down for anything in the world. I couldn't battle him and stop him. And my mother used to just be like, go close the door. Like, just go close the door and let him like work it off. You're not gonna calm him down. Like, it's not gonna happen. And so when black boys have that outburst, we kind of expect it. Right? People look at our children as like bad and unruly and whatever. So boys will be boys. But when girls are not just cute and like, you know, well behaved or whatever because they have these emotional disturbances, people look at you like you're a bad parent. And not that they don't feel that with boys. I feel like it's a little bit more expected with boys than it may be with girls who have autism, and because it is rare.
I agree with that. I can see that. And I think little boys, black boys especially, are kind of like ostracized already to kind of be like that violent, that aggressiveness. So if they exhibit it any kind of way, they won't kind of tie it to, you know, their diagnoses. Yeah.
For me, I had only heard about autism when I was pregnant. What a wonderful time to hear about it. But I was reading Mario Puzo book. I think it was The Last Dawn. I love him as an author. He wrote Godfather. which is the first big book I've ever read in my life.
Okay.
Godfather. Why? I don't. We had it in the house. It was on the shelf. And I had never seen the movie either. This is like in high school, and I'd never seen the movie, but I was like, I'll just read this book. But anyway, there was a character in it, and she was a movie star, and her daughter was autistic. And the way that they talked about it in the book was like it was just a random thing that happened, and not a lot of people had it, and the girl was nonverbal. And I'm like sitting there pregnant. You know when you baking babies, you just feel like, oh my God, that's gonna be me. So it was like the first time I had ever heard of it, and so I was just like, grateful that my kid was not born with any kind of challenges. Because I mean, you may be a wonderful mom, but I definitely wouldn't have had it. I wouldn't have had it if, at that point in my life, to be able to raise a child with special needs. I mean, God, no, I wasn't equipped for that. And so, I wonder what the change is. I mean, I'm not sure if science is looking at why it's increased like that. But I mean, that was 22 years ago. I had never heard of it before in my life. And now it just seems so pervasive. I really wonder what the change is. I know that, clearly some of it's environmental.
Yep, exactly.
But I don't know what else could, be causing.
I would say it's a combination. Again, I'm not a science expert either, but I think it's a combination of age. I wasn't a spring chicken when I had my son, and nor was his father. His father is older than me, so I do think as we age, as Black women,
I think so too.
And as Black men, how we take care of ourselves, and then kind of our genes or any other predisposition conditions we may have that could tie a part into that. Again, I'm no scientist, but I just think the older you do, you or your spouse or the both of you all get up in age, I think you run a higher risk on top of environmental things where you can.
I believe that.
Yeah, where you can possibly have a child on the spectrum. I can't confirm this, but I can just speak from, again, for me. And my experience. So I definitely do think there's an age factor there, and then environmental, and then just being predisposed to a lot of genetical conditions that his father and I have from our fathers and mothers. So yeah, that's what I would say.
I can't say in my family it's genetic.
Okay.
Because we don't have any outside of those two, and this is on my mother's side of the family. We got a lot of crazy on my father's side, but that ain't got nothing to do with autism. But I do think that as you age, it is a risk factor.
Yeah, for sure. And I also think too that our children have been underdiagnosed. And so for a child, like I mentioned before, that may be ADD, ADHD, all along, they probably were just autistic. And they were just never taken into account when it comes to our Black and brown children. I think white children were always properly diagnosed, but for us, it was always just behavioral issues. So it could be, the opposition defiance and the ADD or the ADHD, when no, this person could very well just be autistic or on a spectrum. So I think a lot of that is kind of redeeming the children who were not properly diagnosed too.
And you know what? 50 years ago, we would have never known anyway, because society would have hid these children away. Maybe not Black children, but 50 years ago, they were putting the kids in homes.
They were.
And stuff like
they
this.
were. You were so right.
Treating them. They weren't integrated into society. People weren't like, oh, I'm going to take this child home. It was like a great family shame.
It sure was. It sure was. Let alone if you came out, with Down syndrome or any other type of physical ailments. Oh, yeah, you were put away.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I want to thank you, Holly, for coming on, and I want to thank you guys for listening to the interview with Dr. Holly Sawyer. We're going to actually be playing part 2 of that interview next week, and it's I'm having a good time. I don't know what I was gonna say, but I'm really having a good time doing these interviews. If you are a therapist and you want to be on the show, make sure you hit us up at Black Therapist Podcast and sign up to get on our calendar. If you have already signed up to get on our calendar and we haven't done the interview yet, trust and believe, as soon as there's an opening in the schedule, I'll get everybody on. I want to be a resource for not only clients who are looking for therapists, but therapists who are looking for clients. And so, yeah, it's been another episode of Black Therapist Podcast. Stay tuned.